Keep anxiety away from you, my beautiful friend. Unfortunately, this is an instinctive behavior in humans, something ingrained in you for thousands of years, perhaps hundreds of thousands, and it could even reach millions. We don't have a problem with being a worried human, but the problem arises when this worry turns into a habit. Here it becomes a disease. So today we will talk about anxiety when it turns into a habit and how we can get rid of this thing. We will probably talk about anxiety, then about the habit, then about how anxiety becomes a habit, and after that, how to get rid of this problem. The book Removing Anxiety by the Dr. Jud Brewer. My respected friend, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and let's start with the details of this book. Welcome, my beautiful and kind friend, to the Dopamine program with your brother Emmanuel. It's an honor first. Let's go back to the roots. This anxiety is indeed very important, and we don't know it first better. Let's understand it first better. Anxiety, my beautiful friend. This is a state of tension that a person experiences when they have an uncertain future. So some feelings like fear, tension, and disturbance arise, and many things, all of these fall under anxiety, but because we won't know what the result that we are going on is, how did this behavior develop in humans? Because we, my beautiful friend, a long time ago, even before the agricultural era, humans lived on hunting. Agreed. So they lived in areas that had almost plant coverage so as not to be exposed to the sun, and their homes would be in places where hunting and water are available, so mostly, let's say, near forests or in the forest themselves. So of course, human behavior depended on where my food and drink are, and that there is no danger to my life, neither from someone who might kill me nor even be exposed to predation, so humans were always very mobile, and God knows, maybe today. Today this place has water and there's fishing tomorrow. It's possible that the water may be cut off or the fishing may stop or increase. When chaos ensues, people move from one place to another. As you move, my dear, fear arises because the place is new to you. The area is new, the outcomes are uncertain, you don't know what might happen to you today, nor do you know what might happen tomorrow or next week. This anxiety is what develops completely. After a while, by the grace of God, our bodies are programmed to get rid of this matter after some time. Eventually, all the new ideas that come with the move, when you move to a new place, you get many ideas about what might happen, what might occur, and all this talk. So when you start to see the outcomes are certain, your mind activates the subconscious, our beloved and friendly companion, which takes these feelings, my beautiful friend, and hides them, and these ideas are programmed into the subconscious. So your awareness in the place becomes much less than when you first arrived. And this, by the way, happens to us to this day, meaning you might travel for tourism. When you sleep in a new hotel, you find it very difficult to sleep because your subconscious mind has not yet recorded the entire place. It's unfamiliar, so you experience disturbances, even if it doesn't escalate to full-blown anxiety. Excellent. After a day or two, maybe 3, you begin to get used to it. By the way, this feeling is very important because it is the motivation, my beautiful friend, that makes us search for these deficiencies or reach a safe haven. For example, when you are anxious because you can't find a certain food, and then you provide that food, the anxiety goes away. The same goes for water, safety, and in our modern age today, the same thing happens when you have a bill that must be paid at the end of the month. You are anxious because you need to have the money available. All of this is not a problem for us, and carrying this anxiety with us into the modern era is a very good thing and one of God's blessings upon us. The problem arises when your subconscious mind programs this habit of anxiety. You find yourself caught in cycles of anxiety because of this bad feeling, and your mind becomes accustomed to it, with its signals and so on. I'm talking about the habit now, but it becomes accustomed to it in signals that emerge to stimulate this feeling, even if they are natural and obvious. Eventually, your mind is no longer used to this system, or as soon as it sees this signal, it becomes anxious immediately. Now let's talk about the habit very seriously. The topic is very important in the Book of Habits. Ivan Pavlov, this Russian scientist who discovered something that was very, very great called classical conditioning, which is behavior modification. Let's say the classical one. Of course, the experiment was very simple. He had a dog, all right. When he presented food to the dog, God bless you, the saliva would start to drool from this dog, nice. So this is a natural behavior. You presented food, and the saliva began to secrete in this dog, a very obvious and very natural thing. What was not natural is that he began to ring a bell. The dog hears the bell, then he gets up and presents him with the meal. So consequently, after that, the saliva drools, nice too. After a period of time, there was a strange behavior in the dog. Pavlov, as soon as he rang the bell, the saliva began to drool. Focus with me on why this topic is very dangerous, because biologically your body is not designed to let saliva drool without there being food at all. So what Pavlov discovered at that time was something called the signal, which is that your mind recorded a signal. As soon as you hear this bell, the saliva begins to drool, even though the ringing of the bell has nothing to do with the saliva at all. Did you get the idea? I mean, what does the bell have to do with the secretion of saliva? We are okay to understand that if a meal comes to me, its smell is beautiful and tasty, and I am hungry, my body begins to secrete this saliva to facilitate the digestion process, so it is related to food. But to ring the bell and saliva occurs, this matter was very dangerous and a leap in the science of behavior modification. Of course, after a while. There's something called the open condition that I want you to understand now, that your mind knows a behavior called anxiety. Sweet. So what is the connection of this anxiety? Usually we come to the arrangement of the habit that we are talking about. The first thing is a signal, like a bell ring. This signal triggers a behavior in you that begins after this behavior starts. It ends with a reward. When you get a reward, my beautiful friend, with this order signal behavior reward, you go back, repeat, and practice this behavior. From here, dopamine is secreted to motivate you to go back and do it again based on getting this reward. Usually what happens is that there is a cause for this anxiety. As soon as the cause starts, your mind begins to worry, and after the worry, you try to behave in a certain way to eliminate this anxiety. This reward, when you do this thing, the anxiety disappears, you feel relief, and the relief is the reward. So the problem is, your mind goes back and repeats this cycle just to get this reward. This matter is very dangerous. As I told you, it's natural for your life to go on without worry, but if something new happens and something changes, you face an almost uncertain future. You don't know the outcomes you're heading towards, so this worry arises. The signal for the brain is change, then the thousands of thoughts that enter your mind that the results are not inevitable. This is the signal, so the worry begins. Welcome. So, you act in a way that makes these results inevitable, or for example, if there's a test and you're anxious before the test, then when you take the test and get good results, you calm down and this event passes, thus the worry ends. Sweet. The typographical error that occurs is that your mind enjoys this matter and starts to like the feeling of worry because of the reward that follows. So you enter into these spirals that we talked about, spirals of endless worry, meaning your mind, as soon as you get in the car, for example, every day of worry until you reach a place, and then you feel relieved, haha. You get used to this issue and it becomes a case of classical conditioning, a classic behavior modification. As soon as you get in the car, you start feeling anxious immediately until you reach your destination, and then, poof, the process repeats itself. I seek refuge with the Lord from the word I, but this happened to me with airplanes. I've been flying on planes all my life, literally since I was in the cradle, due to the nature of my father's job and living in a different city, and my mother in another city, and my father, well, and what a night, a disaster. Anyway, my beautiful friend, I used to always fly on planes, and so did my mother. Then suddenly, my mind decided to say, "Oh Lord, I want to be scared of planes," and indeed, that's what happened to me. I became afraid of flying, and the problem is that my fear of flying coincided with my studies outside the state of California. I was 3,940 kilometers away from Florida, and I didn't have a car, so of course I had to travel. Consequently, I started traveling more and became more anxious. Indeed, as soon as I board the plane, this anxiety starts and I sweat, and sometimes it leads to panic attacks. Now imagine, until I reach the place, well, aren't you used to planes, Emmanuel? No. That's it. My mind has formed this habit and adjusted. In behavior, often your worries are unnecessary and the outcomes are inevitable and known. You worry about a test, but you always pass the tests. You worry about the car, well, you always drive. You worry about the plane, likewise, you always travel. You might worry about many things that you are actually accustomed to doing, and you get through them. But enough, your mind has recorded this behavior and corrected it. Therefore, we move on to the solution. How can we get rid of this issue? When solving any problem, the first thing you must do is acknowledge it, of course, and see it. If you don't see it and don't acknowledge it, you have a problem. This is a problem besides the problem itself, you understand. But if you saw the problem and acknowledged it, okay, I have a problem with anxiety. Always keep in mind that this feeling is the result, not the cause. Your feeling of fear, tension, and anxiety, for example, is the result of something specific, either a behavior or more likely an idea, of course, but it could also be a behavior. For instance, you might experience these cycles just because you imagine you're not getting enough sleep, and this can be due to behavior, which is literally proven by clinical trials. For instance, one of the stories mentioned by Dale Carnegie in his book How to Stop Worrying and Start Living was about this very topic. It means that worry and sleep are interconnected, even though Dale Carnegie wasn't actually talking about sleep, but about worry. Anyway, it's a beautiful book, and I definitely recommend reading it. It tells the story of a person, and for YouTube, I want you to understand this, I'll code it for you. This person was being treated by a psychiatrist for a while until he reached a point where he said, "Uncle, I'm done with this life, bye-bye. I don't want it anymore. I'm going to end it." So the doctor said, I didn't try to talk him out of it or convince him not to do this action sweetly. Sweetly, he told him, okay, if you've decided to end it on something worthwhile. Leave behind a legacy. Achieve something very big. So at least when you end your life, people will remember you. Sweetly, I don't remember the story exactly, but he decided to turn around after more than a lap, or a very large number of laps around a certain area. He ended up breaking a record. Of course he ran, and when he ran that distance, he became very tired, went home, and slept. He decided that he would end this life, but only tomorrow. When he slept deeply and for long hours. My beautiful friend, like the example about sleep in the book, Why We Sleep, this is correct, it has areas of stress in the brain. So when he woke up, what he felt was a great sense of relief on a psychological level, and he noticed that the sleep was very enjoyable. So when he thought about it, he said, the only new thing I did was the running I did yesterday, so he went to the doctor and said, I had a very good feeling, and this feeling happened to me because of the physical effort I made, which was followed by a blissful and very deep sleep. It gave me a beautiful feeling and a sense of renewal, and I somewhat regained my passion, so I decided to dedicate my life. He focused on physical efforts, joined running groups, entered the club, and began training, which changed the rhythm of his life. So, my beautiful friend, he had some wrong behaviors that caused him this kind of stress and anxiety, which turned into an illness, of course. He was consulting with the doctor to discover in the end that these behaviors were what needed to be solved. Therefore, the first step was to focus on the cause of this anxiety and then cut the cause from its roots. My beautiful friend, my problem was literally with the airplane. The idea was that as soon as I sat in the airplane seat, I would get these thoughts. I fought the idea with another idea indeed. I sat for maybe years, maybe 4 or 5 years or more, where every time I sat on the airplane, I would say, okay, this is a therapy session against my very strange ideas that suddenly emerged. I tried to fight the ideas with other ideas, among them, for example, reliance on God, which really helped me a lot. I would say, okay, you mean you're afraid of this thing because it's an airplane. Do you think you can't lose your life while sitting on the ground or something? In your room, indeed, these thoughts were always revolving in my mind. I started to think about the concept of reliance, especially since it has a very strong impact on you. Imagine that you are creating an agency, but an agency for whom? For God. I have entrusted you with my life, my situation, my mood, my future, my outcome, and whatever you control, I am content with it. From here, there has been a side of great tranquility and another side, which is the increase of knowledge. This is one of the steps that help you get rid of this feeling, which is curiosity. As the writer said, anxiety always depends on feelings of fear. It turns emotions into fear and tension. Curiosity transforms your thinking mechanisms into questions, and when you raise your knowledge ceiling in a certain matter and become more aware of it with greater understanding, the anxiety lessens. Why? Because you have confirmation on some results, or you come across some ideas that are the cause behind this thing. I have a friend in the aviation field for almost more than 15 years. So I sat with him one day and was telling him about how fear this stranger who came out of the airplane said to me, "What are you afraid of? I can't forget it." I was sitting and he was standing when he asked me, "What are you afraid of?" I said, "There are a few ideas that come to my mind," and I listed about 1, 2, 3. Then he responded to each idea saying, "These ideas are incorrect. I am in the field of aviation, and what actually happens is 1 in 3 indeed." I went and researched and confirmed his words, and it turned out that about 90% of what he said was correct. Not 100%, but his words were about 90% correct and my ideas were wrong. So when the ideas were corrected, the anxiety disappeared. This is one of the ways you can get rid of IT. And more importantly, my beautiful friend, you should focus on the subject of habits. There might be things that trigger this habit, this feeling that we've mentioned a lot. Consequently, it creates these endless cycles. Of course, it's very, very important to read this book on how to win it over, how to get rid of it, as it will help you a lot. Therefore, it's very important to be aware of your habits. It's one of the most important things you can learn in your life. One of the most important things, finally. Keep in mind that just because you often feel anxious, it doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder, okay? Okay, you don't need a doctor. There's no such thing as depression. Calm down, it's normal, we all go through these natural things. Diseases are conditions that hinder daily life, meaning if you have this feeling that never ends, you're always sweating thinking. You're having a panic attack that doesn't stop. These are very intense and rare cases. God won't afflict you with them, so don't afflict yourself with them. Don't even try to convince your subconscious mind that this disease exists, because it really will be convinced and make you suffer from it. Always remember that you are healthy and thank God for that. If you like this dose, my beautiful friend, give me a like, share it with those you love, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you get notified of upcoming episodes. And thank you for your invaluable time. I mean it. Peace be upon you.